The Brooklyn Nets won the second game of the two in China against the Phoenix Suns on Sunday. But what happened today regarding roster cuts is what shocked Nets fans most. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Brooklyn Boys Show alongside Connor Long. I'm Josh Woolever saying hello to you on a beautiful Columbus Day weekend, Monday, October 13th. Make sure you all smash a like and hit subscribe on your way into the building as we are so close to 500 subscribers. I think less than 40 away. Get questions, comments, thoughts. Throw those in the chat. We'll react to all those and hear from you guys on the show. We love to hear what you guys got to think about the Nets roster move and what's to come. So get those in the chat. Connor, my friend, it's been a weekend where we've seen each other a lot. How you doing?
Yes, sir. Doing well, Josh. Great to see you this weekend. We will see each other in just about 11 days as well.
Yes.
We will be in attendance for the Nets season opener, so if you are there, hope to see you guys as well. Brooklyn Nets basketball is here, folks. It's a great feeling, and look, I don't think this fan base, for if you value preseason, if you don't value preseason, for people who do value the preseason, you have to be, a little more at least optimistic for this Brooklyn Nets team, given the fact, obviously, a dominant first preseason game win over Hapoel Jerusalem, and then you watch the first 5 minutes of their first leg of the
Yeah.
series over in Macau, China. You would have thought they came away with a 30-point victory. They dropped that by one in overtime. Was it overtime? No, Sunday.
Yeah, it was overtime.
It was overtime.
Yep.
And then, of course, Sunday morning, they deliver a riveting win over the Phoenix Suns. So 2-1 in the preseason, should have been 3-0. And again, you have to be at least a little more optimistic. If you're at 15 wins, maybe you're at 16 now. If you were at 20, you're at 21 at least. So they put on exciting basketball. All you could ask for in the preseason, folks.
Yeah, that's probably what you're looking for. Record doesn't mean a ton in the preseason, but you're right. And they take the game to overtime. I joked on the post-game show. That's probably going to be the best 5 minutes of basketball the Nets produce all season when they make their first 10 baskets from the field and take, an 18-point lead, not 5 minutes into that game. End up throwing up a lot of bench players to round that thing out. So you're talking about guys who, as we sit here today, are no longer on this Nets roster, close out that game for Brooklyn. So it's no wonder why they dropped that. You're not mad that they lose a preseason game. It's all about, what you learn and how you move forward. And then yesterday morning, they come back from a 10-point deficit in the fourth quarter. And that right there is coaching, even if you're not talking about, a lucky shot from Danny Wolf. That is still, a well-played game for the Nets. And that's what you like to see. But Connor, we are not here to talk about the preseason. We're here to talk about the latest roster moves. Dariq Whitehead and Drew Timme both had waivers requested for them earlier this afternoon. Which one of those shocks you more, and just your raw reaction to both of those guys no longer with Brooklyn?
It's an interesting question. I think if you talk about recency and, what has been put on tape, I'd have to say it would be Drew Timme, just given the fact that, Drew Timme had such a great summer league, given the fact that Danny Wolf, after watching the summer league in particular, I think we all expected that he would spend a little more time on Long Island than we initially thought when he was first drafted. And Drew Timme, put on this, summer league caliber MVP display. So it's interesting to see that they move off of him. Now, when you talk about big picture, it has to be Dariq Whitehead, a player who was a first-round pick just a few years ago, showed some promise, showed some signs of, something you could work with and develop in his minimal NBA minutes last year before ultimately requesting to get sent back down to Long Island. And then kind of after a rocky preseason where they made him really push for roster spot, he played until the final minutes of the preseason opener against Hapoel Jerusalem alongside guys like Drew Timme, alongside guys like AJ Liddell, guys of that nature whose fate are already sealed in Brooklyn. So I think I'd say it was expected with Whitehead over the past few weeks, but when you talk about big picture, I don't think when the Nets selected him in the first round 2 years ago, people would expect he'd be out of town before even being in a rotational role for one full season.
Yeah, I think Dariq Whitehead was probably a little bit more expected to be cut. You're talking about a guy who has played barely any time at the NBA level, has had lower leg injuries kill him. And for a guard who flourishes with the craftiness and the athleticism and, the hops he's able to bring you on the basketball court, multiple lower leg injuries and surgeries are not going to help his case. So he got slowed down a lot in terms of athleticism, and that was a key component to why he was formerly a top recruit in the nation, a former 5-star, like top 3 in his class coming out of high school. So Whitehead, it was a little bit surprising that he didn't pan out, but this isn't one of those picks that I'm going to flame Sean Marks about. You're talking about a guy with so much upside. Obviously, you're disappointed that it doesn't work out when it's all said and done, but man, what Dariq Whitehead could have been, I hope nothing but the best for him, as I do every former net in his continued NBA career, hopefully, if he gets another chance somewhere else. But it just felt like it was time for the Nets to move on from him. They couldn't continue to give him a roster spot over guys who have been competing, over guys who are fully healthy at this point. And even if Dariq Whitehead does stay on this team, you're looking at 8 and 6 minutes in the final 2 preseason games with Brooklyn. He probably wouldn't have had any role in this team anyways.
Well, I kind of will disagree with you there, Josh. I think he was deserving of a roster spot on this team, and granted, there was a log jam at his position, and there still is post him being cut between guys like Jalen Wilson, Tyrese Martin, whose team options were exercised earlier on in the offseason. Drake Powell, who they drafted, Haywood Highsmith, who's going to be become healthy around midseason. There is a log jam there. Guys like Michael Porter Jr. could flex in to that role. Zaire Williams. So there are a ton of guys in that similar role who play that 2/3 position.
Yes.
The versatility that Dariq Whitehead brings, but I don't really think he got a fair opportunity. Injuries derailed his tenure in Brooklyn, and Sean Marks. We crap on Sean Marks, everything he's done. The one compliment you can give Sean Marks is he's been an okay drafter throughout his tenure as a Brooklyn Nets GM. Now, why all of a sudden are you giving up on a guy 2 years after you drafted him in the first round, who frankly, when given an opportunity, has played well? 20 games last year, 12.3 minutes per game at the NBA, 44.6 from downtown, 5.7 points per game. Like, there's upside there. There's something to work with. I don't know why you move off of that compared to Tyrese Martin, who we know what Tyrese Martin is. He's a guy who can be, a third unit ball handler for you and is inconsistent from downtown. Jalen Wilson, an unathletic 3 who is not an NBA player, but somehow led the Nets in minutes played last year. Dariq Whitehead, I think, as I see the comment there from Mark, injuries killed him. And, he doesn't get injured. We're talking about a very different Dariq Whitehead. We're talking about a Dariq Whitehead that could potentially be in a starting role on this Brooklyn Nets team if he wasn't injured, because that pick out of Duke alongside Noah Clowney, you love the athleticism, you love the fast-paced nature that he brought to the game, and you just wonder how bad are these injuries really that Brooklyn does not want to show us, and why he didn't play much in the preseason.
Exactly. I think that's a key component to it too. Like, they're not going to come out publicly and tell you everything that's going on behind the scenes. There's probably, more to the fact that he's requesting for his own personal health to be moved out of the NBA level. So there's probably a little bit more there behind the curtain that we don't get the full peek into. But I guess I might have phrased this wrong when I said, did I say I wanted Dariq Whitehead off the team? Because I think you're right in saying that he was never given his fair opportunity, and that he could have been something at the NBA level. But the way I see it is that out of all the shaky things Sean Marks has done, in my eyes, moving on from a guy who, has lost the pep in his step and has lost some of the athleticism that made him, as highly touted of a prospect and as of a recruit as he was, moving off of a guy like that 2 years into an NBA career where he's done nothing for you and has had 3 surgeries in 2 seasons, a season where he played 2 games of basketball between the NBA and G League. So, you're talking about a guy who has had more than a ton of trouble staying on the basketball court. And no, I don't want Tyrese Martin taking over a roster spot over him. Like a guy that shoots inconsistently from 3. You said, sometimes can be a third rotational ball handler. I don't think even. I think you'd rather have Nolan Traore, Ben Saraff bringing the ball up the court if you're the Nets. And all he does is shoot 3s, literally. When was the last time you saw Tyrese Martin? When was the last time you saw him get to the mid-range and hit a shot?
Well, to play devil's advocate, you can make the same point for Dariq Whitehead as well.
Oh yeah, no off-ball movement from Dariq Whitehead.
And he's played to his strengths from beyond the arc over the past few years. So that's what I will add about Whitehead.
It's bad or worse. Let's be real.
Now, when you talk about Drew Timme, he's the intriguing one because Noah Clowney came out very strong preseason debut. His efficiency kind of dipped as the preseason went on, but still remained, a reliable guy throughout the preseason. And I think the preseason was overall a net positive for a guy like Noah Clowney. So the Nets clearly saw enough in him where they're going to rely on him to play a prominent role on this team, obviously alongside Day'Ron Sharpe, alongside Nick Claxton, and then what they do with Danny Wolf, who they selected with their final pick in the first round, obviously remains up in the air. Drew Timme, I just didn't see a role for him on this team. I think he can get an NBA opportunity somewhere else. I don't think he would want to sign a two-way deal with this team and play, 40, 50 games.
And they're all taken up as well.
In Long Island. No, the Nets have one two-way left because it's currently EJ Liddell and who is the blanking on the second guy.
Fanbo Zhang.
Did they find it? They gave Fanbo the two-way.
And they also have Tyson Etienne.
No, so Tyson Etienne's on a standard NBA deal now. So
is he?
Yeah, so they have two guys on a two-way deal. Thank you for the Fanbo call. So Fanbo Zhang and then of course EJ Liddell. And potentially they can open up another one if they do ultimately move on from Liddell, which I think after what we saw in the preseason could be a very, very, very strong possibility of that ultimately coming to fruition. So at the end of the day, I just don't think there was a role for Timme, and I think he wants to pursue an NBA opportunity.
Yeah, you make a couple good points. I'll start with Clowney. He had a fantastic preseason. And what you wanted to see out of him was the continued development of his three-point shot. Last year, the inefficiency was prominent in terms of what he did from beyond the arc. He was very inconsistent. It was, one step forward, three steps back in terms of his three-point shooting. And it would come in spurts, but they were really infrequent and inoften. So, that's sort of what you wanted to see the development of in the offseason. And I think you got where you like. He hit 3 for 3 from three-point range in preseason game number 2. He was crashing the boards in terms of offensive rebound, and he's not the biggest power forward center you're going to see in the NBA, but he sure plays with enough grit and grind to earn himself a couple of minutes. I know we talked about this a lot in the offseason, Connor, but this is going to be a Brooklyn Nets team with a lot of fluidity. This isn't going to be your standard 1 through 5. For example, I'm sure you will see times when Day'Ron Sharpe and Nick Claxton are sharing the floor. I'm sure you will also see times when Michael Porter Jr. is the tallest guy on the court. Because that's
Zaire Williams.
That's just the way the Nets rock. So the way I saw it is that with that fluidity, I thought Timme could slot in anywhere 3 through 5, and I thought he could be a good rotational depth piece for this team and, a good sort of backup guy to have in case of injuries and stuff. Obviously, the Nets didn't see it that way. I'm not heartbroken by this move, but I think Drew Timme could have had a role on this team, but you're talking about Noah Clowney's development looking super positive. You're re-signing Day'Ron Sharpe to that 2-year deal, and Nick Claxton also looks like maybe signs of his old self were coming out through this preseason, which is also extremely positive. So I certainly do understand the move to move on from Timme.
Most definitely, let's add Terry Roberts and Trey Scott to their roster and a corresponding move. Obviously, Terry Roberts, known for his time with the Long Island Nets, was on the Summer League roster, didn't get any run whatsoever, though, in the Summer League. And then Trey Scott, longtime G Leaguer, has some NBA experience. Don't expect those guys to make it all that far into next week. Most likely, I think they're guys who they ultimately move on from. I mean, you see the roster gymnastics that this team has kind of pulled off recently in the past few weeks, signing guys, quickly moving off of them. They're just trying to get to the salary floor at this point so they don't have to dish out the extra money to every current player on their roster. So again, when you talk about the Nets roster and some of these roster battles, I think Jalen Wilson, Tyrese Martin, the really intriguing one to watch here, and that's one that's going to heat up talk-wise over the next few weeks.
Yeah, I think Robert Scott are both Long Island candidates. And you're right, it is kind of crazy to think about. A week from tomorrow at 5 p.m., I believe, is when rosters officially have to be submitted to league office. So that's next Tuesday, and then opening night is that the day after on Wednesday down in Charlotte. So you're only talking about 8 days for Sean Marks to have everything finalized and submitted. So this should be a pretty exciting race, Connor. Expect both of those guys to get a lot of run Thursday night up in Toronto, because that is the final time to prove your point, make your case, to try to make this roster. I think we will see a lot of run from the back end guys. I think probably a little bit of less from the starting five that Jordi Fernandez has ran out these first couple games, though there hasn't been a couple of changes there. But you're talking about for those guys just trying to get reacclimated because obviously majority of them didn't play over the summer. So get some real NBA experience under their belts, which I'm sure was the goal of those first three games. And then at this point, Thursday night up in Toronto just becomes a battle for that last roster spot, assuming that Scott and Roberts are not here.
Smash the like button, hit subscribe. Josh Woolever, Connor Long, right here with you guys on the Brooklyn Boys Show. Questions, comments, thoughts, throw those in the chat. Josh and I gave our thoughts on the latest news in Netsland. Be sure to smash the like again and subscribe for daily Nets content right here on the channel. Josh, you want to dig into the chat? Quick little show here. So you want to wrap up with the chat? We can kind of go through there.
Let's do it. An intriguing one. We'll start at the top from Jonathan. We mostly knew and we're discussing Whitehead and Timme as waiver candidates. Wilson looks like next to be waived, and Martin seems to have done enough to secure the last spot. I'm not sure about Martin. I think I'd probably rather have Wilson, but again, the situation of bad or worse.
I think they're going to give Wilson the roster spot. He played the most minutes on this Brooklyn Nets roster last year. I think that's something Jordi values, someone who's going to give 100% every single minute that he's on the floor offensively and defensively. So I'll say Jalen Wilson gets the roster spot here.
Martin did put up 11 in that final preseason game, including 3 of 3 from the field. So that could certainly help make that case. Again, I think a lot of it does come down to Thursday in Toronto, which should be influential. This was another one I wanted to get to. Marks has drafted 15 players in 10 years, and the Whitehead investment was a complete failure and a waste of a pick. How much longer do we put up with Marks? I'm not fully blaming this on Marks. Guy's gotten 3 surgeries in 2 years in the NBA. How much can you really blame that on a GM?
You can't blame it on Marks, but as a whole, I think, this team, Sean Marks is getting at least another 3 years as the general manager of this team. As crazy as it sounds, because no team fires their GM midway through a rebuild. That's not how it works, and Nets would be clowned in the media and be called a laughing stock of the NBA if they were to do that. They've already made their commitment to Marks for this rebuild, and that's the same rabbit hole they're going to go down. He's going to have at least 3 more years. They don't win. I'm going to say they don't go to the playoffs at some point over the next 4 years, and not only just go to the playoffs and get swept and knocked out of town in the first round, make the playoffs and go on a run, then I think we could officially say good riddance to Sean Marks.
Yeah, and I think hopefully this year you get the number 1 pick and the selection is as obvious as it gets, and we can make this from our couch with minimal scouting. So hopefully this is not a situation where, you're preying on Sean Marks to not screw over this fan base. And hopefully the draft lottery is so out of control these days that you never know what can happen. If you are a 0-win team, you're talking about the same odds as a 20-something win team. So
certainly,
that's always a fun one. So no matter how many games the Nets lose this year, there's always that sliver of hope that they just get completely screwed by the NBA. Let's see. Mark D, appreciate you tuning in. We need Traore to back up Saraf until Gioman is ready. No official word on if he'll be a go for opening night, but most likely they're holding him out of these preseason games to preserve that health and get him back as soon as possible.
Yeah, this is an injury that no one reported, that no one picked up on, and was kind of just aired out. Hey, this is what it is. at media day from Sean Marks and Jordi Fernandez. So you hope he's all right. I mean, Drake Powell's injury was rather serious. We didn't even see him until the second preseason game of the year. So you hope Yegor's ready to go for game 1 of the 2025 NBA season opener for Brooklyn next Thursday, or no,
that's Wednesday in Charlotte. Travel day to come back to Brooklyn for the home opener. Good comment, Jonathan. Fenbo had a dud in China. That he did. Is his 2-way spot window closed, or is there a chance for him to salvage it? Well, again, we talked about this. The Nets still have another chance at it, but man, he was awful. He committed 2 fouls in his first 2 minutes. He looked a little bit lost playing NBA competition, and ultimately did not knock a shot down. Didn't even attempt one in game number 1, and then was a DNP yesterday. Coach's decision.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting, right? Because my question is, if you're not giving it to Fan Bozang and, testing the upside that he has there and ability and, what his ceiling kind of looks like with the Nets, who are you giving that final 2-way to?
And you can always just keep him on Long Island for an extended period of time. There's no commitment to keeping him up.
Exactly. My question to those who don't want Fambo on a 2-way, who are you giving the final 2-way spot to?
Yeah.
There's no
I mean,
one
you
more
want to
convincing.
sign the next EJ Liddell? Be my guest. I think I'll go with the international upside.
EJ Liddell shouldn't even be on it. EJ Liddell is not
Yeah,
even.
I would cut EJ Liddell way before I cut Fenbo Zhang.
Yeah, I mean, I think Fanbo deserves the two-way, and unless someone can come up with a compelling case to convince me, I'm gonna die on that hill.
Yeah, I don't think that's much of a conversation. I do not want to move off Zhang here. A couple final comments before we wrap. Like and subscribe if you have not hit those buttons yet. Drake Powell and Danny Wolf in limited minutes prove they are deserving of NBA minutes, and unfortunately, Nets have tradable vets. Unfortunately, Nets have tradable vets in front of them. I don't know how unfortunate that is, Jonathan, because after all, this is a rebuilding team, and if Sean Marks can get picks, we've seen that he has no problem doing so. But yes, I think Drake Powell, those were his first 2 games at the NBA level. Didn't play at all because he was injured over the summer. So he certainly presented to you that upside that the Nets saw, getting his draft rights at number 22 from the Hawks. So you like that. Danny Wolf, he was a little bit uncoordinated, is the way I would describe both his preseason and his summer league. He made a couple 3-pointers, and that's what you like to see out of your 7-foot guy that they're calling, moves like a guard. But to be honest, I need to see more out of Danny Wolf. Drake Powell, though, I was pleased in his first 2 games at the NBA level.
Yeah, look, I think a lot of these guys are gonna spend a copious amount of time on Long Island with the Nets, and I think Powell is someone we're gonna see spend the most time there. Again, just given the logjam at that position.
Yeah, there's that 2-3 combo, man. There is a ton of places to spread
Yep.
her minutes too. So I think that's like half of the piece of the puzzle for Jordi
Yeah.
Fernandez this season. Figuring out who goes where. Are you maximizing development versus trying to win night in and night out? And obviously, at the end of the season, you're looking for that high caliber pick, but that doesn't mean Jordi Fernandez walks into Barclays Center, strategizing how this team loses. But I think that's a huge part of what can make Jordi Fernandez, even if this team isn't showing up in the win column, what can make Jordi Fernandez a good coach and certainly cement his case to get extended long term as Brooklyn's head play caller.
Well said.
Let's see here. A couple more before we hit the road here. Mark D says Tyrese Martin is 26. Again, like Jalen Wilson 2 years ago. I mean, this is probably a pretty bad comp, but Summer League MVP, and you can't put a ton of stock into that, but he
Kevin
has
Knox
shown
was, yeah.
his potential. Yeah, exactly. And besides that one game where Martin was like 90% from 3 in Phoenix and at some random Tuesday and his two-way contract got converted to a standard, what has Tyrese Martin done for this team? Nothing. Can he get better? Probably not. So at the end of the day, I would give it to Wilson.
Well said. Completely agree there.
Last couple here. Crater 861. Joe is not one of those impatient type owners. He will take his time to come to fruition. Just my opinion, and that's what we've seen. We've seen 5 head coaches come and go through the Sean Marks GM era, and yet there has been one constant, and that is the general manager. Does that surprise you at all a little bit? Or, a lot of times, like we see with the New York Jets, Connor, it's if you're firing one, you're cleaning the entire house. And that's what we saw with Joe Douglas just a year ago. Even though, he built a semi-competent roster, but does Sean Marks, has he overstayed his welcome?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I've been a big critic of Sean Marks. I don't think he deserves to be here. You look at the top longest tenured NBA GMs, and they're all guys who win. They're all guys
Yes.
who have been a part of successful turnarounds and win championships. Sam Presti, obviously atop that list. Pat Riley, guys like that. You see Masai Ujiri with the Raptors, their president. You see Greg Popovich, of course, with the Spurs, and then you see Sean Marks. Hasn't won a championship. Hasn't made
the conference finals.
Hasn't made the conference finals. Was a toenail away from making the conference finals.
Oh my gosh.
So,
we're not doing this on a Monday.
So
we're not doing this with school tomorrow.
His time is that clock is ticking. I will say this about that Joe Tsai comment. I do not like whenever he speaks to reporters because he always throws softball answers to them, and that's me coming like from a fan perspective because like with the Jets, for example, I have that balance of being like a reporter and a fan. We started this Nets project. I will never consider myself like a Nets reporter or anything like that. I'm a Nets fan who just loves coming on here and talking with you guys. So Like, as a fan, I freaking hate that he throws softball answers, and, like, being, a reporter on the other side, I would love that as a reporter, as someone who wouldn't be a fan of the team. It's like me with the Knicks, as I cover the Knicks. Like, I would love, if an owner just threw softball answers like that. But the softball that he threw the other day talking about this team, "Oh, yeah, we're gonna every decision we make." I don't know, again, I'm, like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
paraphrasing here.
Oh, we've been doing great, and then Jordi Fernandez backs it up with
Yeah.
talking about the draft picks, and then they cut Whitehead the next day.
Yeah, exactly. Talking about how he wants, and props to Jordy, because like there's not much you can say. When you're in New York and you're in the media, they're gonna press you. Like your owner just said, well, first we know your roster isn't very good. Your owner just said he wants a good draft pick. Are you tanking? Blah 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 blah. So I give
Yeah.
Jordy credit for the bounce back. I just can't do the Joe size softballs, especially when it gets to the point in the year and the Nets are like 20-40.
Yeah, this was the comment here from Jonathan, but I think Mark D brought up a great point. Like, he says, "Do we have to cut Martin or Jalen Wilson? Those are probably the top two candidates." Let me just throw this out here just to branch out a little bit. I think it is a little bit less likely, but you could be talking about a Kobe Buffkin. You could be talking about a Haywood Highsmith who is not going to be physically ready for the start of this season. Do either of those options intrigue you? Personally, Buffkin's off the table for me. His spot is cemented, but it is interesting to think about Haywood Highsmith, the guy who has helped the Miami Heat be playoff contenders year in and year out, and has been a plus defender. But you traded him basically at the time for salary reasons, and now at this point, you're talking about a guy who's not going to be ready for over a month. So does that have any intrigue cutting him instead?
They would trade him, I believe, Haywood Highsmith.
That makes sense.
Because you can get something in return from a veteran who's could space the floor for you, continues to elevate as a defender. They would trade him. I don't think cut him.
There we go. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Sean Marks classic, throw around second round picks like they're the most valuable thing in the world. That will do it for us. Connor, any final thoughts? Nets have one preseason game remaining before they start this season in less than a week and a half, baby. Can't wait.
No, sir. I'm looking forward to the season. Got a fun interview on the pod coming up myself next week with a guest I think you guys will really, really enjoy. So big name guests who I think you guys will enjoy. So stay tuned for that. Not going to spoil it, but looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to back getting, getting on here consistently. Took off for a little bit after I had a big summer on the show, and I'm ready to be rolling with you guys. Good to see everyone. Let's hit 500 subscribers yesterday. Bye.
Let's go, baby. Appreciate it. Everyone tuning in. You guys are the best. Like and subscribe if you haven't done so yet. He's Connor Long. I'm Josh Woolever for the Brooklyn Boys Show, saying have a great night, everybody. One preseason game remaining. Let's go, Nets. Stay safe, everybody.